On today's episode of Guitar Gear 1, we will be discussing the Edwards ELP130 ALS. We're going to tell you who Edwards is, what the f all those numbers mean, and thanks for coming back to Guitar Gear 1. Today I figured we'd jump right into some sound samples. I'm definitely going to talk about the company later, but for right now, I think you should just hear what the guitar sounds like. That's actually the bridge pickup. These are Seymour Duncan Seth Lover humbuckers installed in this mother. Let's hear that same thing with the neck pickup. Middle position, so this is going to be both pickups, of course. The thing that's irking me about this guitar, the previous owner, for reasons that I don't understand, decided to bypass the neck position tone pot. So some guys like to eliminate the tone pot in a bridge pickup, and they're going directly from pickup, volume pot, output jack, and they believe that's going to give them the cleanest signal, especially for like metal styles and things like this. But for some reason, somebody wanted the purest tone from that neck pickup. I kind of wish we could dial that back. I'm going to play a little bit more of the clean stuff, and we'll move over to something a little grittier. Here's that neck position. Again, full bore on the tone, right? A couple quick things to mention. I am tuned a half step down here, so that's a factor. I did set up the neck the other day, just adjusted the truss rod, haven't done anything with the intonation at all. And I can kind of hear it touching down just a little bit on the frets at this point, but overall, that's kind of what we got. So moving along to some heavier stuff, again, these are lower output PAF style pickups, right? So this is like the opposite of what people on Chug Life and Advanced Gear and stuff like that, those guys are going to primarily tell you to do. There's definitely people that have a crush on PAF style stuff, but there's a lot of people that don't. So let's start off with just some drop D PAF high gain angle stuff. I'm just gonna riff, dog. I thought I'd get onto that neck pick or bridge pickup to do that. I've been playing a ton of 7-string. I really don't play 6 strings a lot, kind of in my personal life these days. You know, I come in and out of it, but I apologize. I have to get used to, well, being in higher tunings, right? So, you know, this being a Les Paul style guitar, I think I'm going to do some chord stuff quick so you can kind of hear that. And I really think it's the mid-range of this style of guitar that excels so much for rhythm work. So I'm on like the 13th or 15th and 17th frets. Intonation is just dead on, and that's the kind of stuff that I really listen to, because like if you're a serious player, you're going to find yourself forming chords in higher positions, and I all the time I'm like micromentally moving my fingers a bit to get those things in tune. So when I'm playing a guitar with great frets and killer intonation, I definitely notice and appreciate it. So I guess I'm sneaking myself into talking about this guitar, right? Because I can't help myself. So what the f is this thing? Okay, the Edwards Guitar Company. Who's that? The ESP company makes these. Okay, so ESP, and I'm going to make a separate video on this, owns lots of companies that I don't think most people understand are ESP. So you may or may not be familiar. In the 1970s, there were a number of Japanese companies like Tokai and Graco, and most certainly Ibanez. They were making exact clones of American vintage guitars, right? So you got SG, Stratocasters, Explorers, Les Pauls, of course, everything. They were making them as a one-to-one copy. And as a point, these are both Heritage H157s. So that's the Heritage Guitar Company's equivalent of the Gibson Les Paul Custom, which we got one of those right here. This is a weird model. We'll talk about that someday. These bodies are larger than the Gibson body, okay? And dimensionally, you will feel the difference when you pick up a Heritage. Look at that headstock. Come on. So the Edwards line was made with the understanding that these would never be distributed in the United States as new products. The deal was ESP was allowed to create this line for the Japanese market only. So obviously, right, we're respecting that. But these are true one-to-ones, right? So dimensionally, this is a Gibson. Even the tuning machines, right? So they got those green buttons. The headstock shape is exactly the same. And I gotta say, I've been hearing about these for years. Okay, so I bought this for me. This was my own thing. It wasn't just a review for the show. If you're familiar with the higher end Gibson stuff, okay, so like they're kind of cream of the crop as far as like factory stuff for the everyday guy is the R series. So a 1958 reproduction would be an R8. The 1959 reproduction is the R9. You get the idea. And those are just killer guitars. They're just fantastic. They really are. And so I gotta tell you, as a guy that's played a whole lot of R9s, which generally speaking, if you're looking at an R9, you're talking about $6 grand. It's kind of where they live, 4 to 6 on the used market sometimes. But at the beginning of this video, I rattled off the model number of this guitar, right? Which again is the Edwards ELP. Okay, so far we've got Edwards, Les Paul. That all makes sense. The quality of these guitars from Edwards is stacked by number. The lower the number is, the lower the quality of it. And it's not like they go to garbage or anything like that, but as you ascend the numbers, I believe it caps at 135, but that's for a custom, not a standard recreation. Of course, this would be a Gibson Les Paul standard. The ALS designates all lacquer series. Okay, so the same way that these Heritage guitars would be any of your top-end Gibsons, instead of having a poly finish, they have nitrocellulose lacquer. And so if we look over this guitar closely, we'll do some close-ups later, there's checking all over it. So there's a lot of reasons people really like poly. There's also a lot of reasons we got the fuck away from it, right? It peels, it splits. And if you notice, these guitars, I actually have towels on the backs of these stands because rubberized stands will eat right through nitro. Nitro is sensitive to light. There's all kinds of problems with it. So a lot of people do feel it rings out better than any finish does. So there's reasons people insist on having it. There's also reasons people would rather not. So I'm somewhere in the middle maybe. But okay, so again, it's a 1-to-1 Les Paul. You got this nice dark rosewood fingerboard, killer frets. The tuning machines are fantastic. And again, you know, I pointed out that intonation earlier. Let's do it one more time with a clean chord, okay? So like something like this. Not every guitar sings out like a piano, and these do. And here's the funny thing. This isn't a Gibson. It's another Edwards. I have an Edwards 7-string. I own a few ESPs. Those guys just know what they're doing. So the question was, is a top-of-the-line Edwards Les Paul an R9 killer? Could be. Could be. You tend to be able to find these on the used market for under $1,000. Man, I got to tell you, it's just a killer guitar for the money. I would go as far as to say it's going to be really hard to find a serious contender at the same price point that's going to do anything that this one does. The last thing I want to talk about, and this is going to be making its way into all the videos from now on, the investment standpoint, okay? If you don't know what the fucking Edwards is, most people aren't going to know either. So, Heritage is slowly becoming more of a household name. Still doesn't hold a candle to Gibson, I'm sure. Obviously, everybody knows what Gibson is. So day in and day out, I meet guys that buy recreations of Stratocasters or whatever, and they're better than Fenders, for sure. Way better parts, way better setups, better everything. And those people are so frustrated because they will never get the money for those guitars that a Fender guitar commands. And the reason is brand recognition and notoriety. What I'm saying is maybe someday, if you chose to buy one of these, maybe it would rise in value. Perhaps people would start catching on. These could become very, very hip to have, and things could change. I wouldn't count on that. I would say if you're a gigging musician and you need a guitar that if it gets swiped off the stage or somebody drunkenly knocks it over, and any gigging guy, you know what I'm talking about, okay? So this is like an absolute workhorse, but if the worst happened to it, you could get another one, and you're probably not super attached to it necessarily. So wanted to mention those points. And then lastly, these things are so light, dude. They weigh nothing. They weigh absolutely nothing, okay? Like I have a Junior right here. This Junior is heavier. There's no doubt about it. It's heavier than this Edwards LP is. I have a weight-relieved Les Paul Custom. You see how scientific I'm getting, right? Forgive me. Right about the exact same weight. I mean, dead nuts, like just about the same. Now I'm kind of curious to put them on a scale. But it is not weight-relieved, and yet it feels like it is. So again, for the gigging guy that's going to have this thing hanging on your shoulder for 3 hours at a blues gig or whatever, it's comfy. So I don't think you're going to beat the price. It might be a little dodgy to resell it if you need to do that. Clocking in at what, 5 times, 6 times less than an R9? Pick one of these up and play it. You might be really surprised. Guitargear1, we're going to be putting out a video a week from now on, a guitar review. Gear review, I should have said. We're going to do a gear review every week. And we're going to start working in other kinds of videos to the page as well. We're really going to go for it this time. So thanks for being so patient with me. I'm back. Guitargear1 is back, so please stay tuned. Thanks, guys.